Hopefully you have your shorts, you have your sunscreen, you have air conditioning and fans. It is going to be a hot one. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. And we are going to begin with that extreme weather. It's impacting most of the country. This morning, over 100 million people are under heat alerts as these record-breaking high temperatures blanket the country. Several major cities will see temperatures either in the triple digits or the heat index will make it feel that way.
The heat is not the only problem. Strong storms are also sweeping across parts of the country. From the middle of the nation, Minnesota and Iowa, to Virginia out east, tens of thousands of people are waking up without power after they were hit with heavy rains overnight. And in Missouri, fast-rising floodwaters trap people in their homes and their cars. Emergency crews there report they had to rescue about 40 people. NBC News correspondent Ryan Chandler is in Dallas and has the latest.
Good morning, Joe and Savannah. From record-breaking temperatures in some parts of the country to severe thunderstorms and even smoke along the East Coast, it was a weekend of wild weather, and it is not over yet. By the numbers, some 170 million Americans are facing heat alerts today. Some areas could feel as hot as 115 degrees. Officials across the country are joining medical experts to warn people to take this seriously. This is not just a typical summer day. It could be dangerous. Heat most years is the deadliest weather killer in the United States. Here in Dallas, we've been talking with public health officials. They are giving out air conditioning units to people who may not have AC. They're opening up cooling centers, telling everybody to stay hydrated, check on your young and old people, and take care of your pets if you're taking them outside. Take this heat seriously. We're also seeing severe thunderstorms, some possible tornadoes in South Dakota, and over the weekend, flooding emergencies in Missouri led people to be rescued from their homes and vehicles. Rescue teams were in neighborhoods patrolling by raft. Some 40 people were rescued there. Today, the target is on the East Coast. Boston and New York could feel as hot as 105 degrees. So all across the country, we're seeing wild weather that could pose dangers for people through Wednesday. Joe, Savannah.
All right, Ryan, thank you.
Well, let's figure out what's going on where you live. Let's get more with your Morning News Now weather.
Yeah, meteorologist Michelle Grossman is here with all those triple-digit numbers. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, it feels like deja vu. Week after week, we're looking at these temperatures soaring into the 90s, the triple digits. You factor in the humidity, it will feel like 115 in spots. So let's take a look at what's happening in terms of the heat alerts. 171 million Americans under heat alerts. It's from the plains all the way to the east. And we do have an extreme heat warnings. That's where you see that hot pink color. So places like St. Louis, Memphis, New Orleans, Jacksonville, Savannah, Raleigh, those are the places where you're going to see that really high heat and really high humidity. Take a look at some of these numbers. We're looking at temperatures mainly in the upper 90s. Some spots will hit the triple digits, but once you factor in that humidity, we're looking at temperatures feeling like 109 in Little Rock. It's going to feel like 109 in New Orleans. Same story as we head up towards portions of the Carolinas into the mid-Atlantic, feeling like 108 in Raleigh, and it will feel like 101 in D.C. Same story tomorrow. It's a hot one today, another hot one tomorrow. Temperatures into the 90s, into the 100s. You factor in that humidity, that will still be a factor. We'll feel like 105 in Charlotte tomorrow, feeling like 102 in Richmond, feeling like 100 degrees in New York City. Same story down to the South, Mobile, Alabama. You will feel like 111 tomorrow. Here's the good news. We do have some relief on the way for some. Look at D.C. By Friday, we're looking at 80 degrees, so a 11-degree drop from Thursday to Friday. Same story in St. Louis. By Thursday and Friday, temperatures comfortable into the low 80s, and we're going to lower that humidity as well. Another big story today, all that heat and humidity will spark some showers and storms where you see those darker colors. That's where we're expecting the highest amounts of rain. I do want to point this out because we do have the possibility of a derecho. So what is a derecho? This will be in the northern plains. It's a wind event. It could be very damaging, destructive, even in some cases. It's straight line winds that last a long time. So we're going to be watching for that development later on today. And then notice all these scattered storms dotting the country. Pretty much a lot of spots have the chance for some showers and storms because of this heat and humidity. And this is what it looks like in terms of the severe weather threat. We have a moderate risk. That's 4 out of 5 on the severity scale. That is in the red. Where you see the orange is an enhanced risk. The yellow is a slight risk. So all those places, those are the likeliest spots for seeing some strong storms. And we will see those winds gusting up to 75 miles per hour. Keep in mind, that's hurricane force winds, and we're looking at hail. Could be large in some spots. A tornado or two is possible. Again, the highest amounts would be where we see this hatched area with those winds gusting, and that's where we're going to be worried about that derecho forming later on today. So we will watch that throughout the afternoon. This is what it looks like on Tuesday, not quite as robust in terms of the severe weather risk, but still looking at the chance for storms in portions of the plains into the Midwest.
I have to say, I was driving home last night, and I don't drive often these days, so my skills were rusty. And the skies opened up like I hadn't seen in a very, very long time out of nowhere. It was like the highest windshield wipers couldn't handle it.
That's what I think the problem is. It comes out of nowhere, and it is just like a deluge of water.
Yep. I saw that this weekend, too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Sure.
President Trump has agreed to a major trade deal with the European Union. The announcement ends months of uncertainty surrounding America's relationship with one of its biggest trading partners.
Yeah, the deal sets tariffs at 15% across the board, though there are some exceptions for certain industries. The rate is a reduction from the 30% that Mr. Trump had previously threatened. While as part of the deal, the EU agreed to purchase $750 billion in U.S. energy and buy American military equipment, though no dollar amount has been placed on that yet. The president made the announcement yesterday following a meeting with EU officials in Scotland.
They're agreeing to open up their countries to trade at zero tariff. So that's a very big factor. Opening up their countries, all of the countries will be opened up to trade with the United States at zero tariff.
It's a big deal. It's a huge deal. It will bring stability. It will bring predictability. That's very important for our businesses on both sides of the Atlantic.
Investopedia's editor-in-chief, Caleb Silver, joins us now to talk more about this. Caleb, good morning. So the president of the EU, who we just heard from there, did later acknowledge 15% was still a real cost for the bloc, but that it was the best deal we could get. What do you make of the deal? Who are the winners and losers here?
Yeah, well, when you think it could have been 30%, it is the best deal they could have gotten at this time. But this also follows a framework we've seen the U.S. make with Japan and South Korea, where there's the tariff number, 15%, but there's also the agreement to make purchases. You mentioned the $750 billion in energy purchases, plus around $600 billion worth of investments into U.S. companies, into the U.S. economy. So the winner looks like it's the U.S. here, but there's also the exemptions, and those are important for chemicals and pharmaceuticals, very big, especially for European pharmaceutical makers. AstraZeneca, you can think of several more, where we import a lot of drugs. So the pharmaceutical sector here winning, and also the auto sector winning in a big way, because those tariffs were subject to 25 to 30%. Now that looks like 15%. U.S. automakers and European automakers bringing autos into the U.S., those are the winners here.
Caleb, what do you think this deal means for the markets and for consumers?
Yeah, well, the market's loving the sound of this right now. Back to all-time highs. We had 5 all-time highs last week. We're going to open today at an all-time high ahead of a huge, busy week for financial markets. We have a lot of earnings today. We have the August 1st deadline for other countries, namely China, to come to the table, although that looks like it'll get pushed at least a few weeks, if not a couple of months, as negotiations continue. But this is good news, ostensibly, because these tariffs could have been a lot higher, or there could have been no deal with the EU, which would have been reciprocal tariffs coming to us here in the United States.
Yeah, I want to ask you more about China. You mentioned that their negotiations are set to resume today. I mean, realistically, what are the expectations? You do think this 90-day truce, that it could be extended even more?
It sounds like it might be, because there could be a meeting later on this fall in South Korea where President Trump might actually go and strike an actual deal with China. But there's a lot that needs to be ironed out there, especially the negotiations over rare earth minerals. The United States has wanted to make sure that there are no tariffs on those coming from China. We use those in magnets for just about every manufacturing process we have here in the United States. But it looks like there's still a lot of back and forth there, though positive, more positive than we've heard in recent weeks. That could lend to a bigger deal down the road, but I don't think it'll be by the August 1st deadline. Might even be, not even be by the end of August.
All right. Caleb Silver. Caleb, thank you so much.
Well, the Trump administration continues to face pressure to release files on convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It comes as Epstein's former accomplice and convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell met with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche again on Friday. The meeting's raising questions over whether the president might pardon Maxwell, something Mr. Trump said he hadn't thought about, but that he was, quote, allowed to do. Meet the Press moderator Kristen Welker pressed House Speaker Mike Johnson about that on her show yesterday.
Hello there, Joe and Savannah. This week on Meet the Press, I spoke to House Speaker Mike Johnson about his thoughts on President Trump not ruling out a pardon for convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. Here's what one victim who testified under a pseudonym told the court at sentencing, quote, "The many acts that were perpetrated on me by Epstein, including rape, strangulation, and sexual assault, were never consensual and would not have occurred had it not been for the cunning and premeditated role Ghislaine Maxwell played." Is that someone deserving of a pardon or commutation in any circumstance, Mr. Speaker?
If you're asking my opinion, I think 20 years was a pittance. I think she should have a life sentence at least. I mean, think of all these unspeakable crimes. And as you noted earlier, probably 1,000 victims. I mean, you know, it's hard to put into words how evil this was, and that she orchestrated it and was a big part of it. At least under the criminal sanction, I think is an unforgivable thing. So, again, not my decision, but I have great pause about that, as any reasonable person would.
You can see my full interview and a lot more at MeetThePress.com. You can also get more Meet the Press right here on NBC News Now every weekday at 4 p.m.
All right, Kristen, thank you. Well, let's keep this conversation going with NBC News legal affairs reporter Gary Grumbach. Gary, good morning. So we heard there from Speaker Johnson expressing that hesitation over any potential pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell here. Under what kind of circumstances would the president potentially pardon Maxwell?
Well, the president's right here. He absolutely has the right to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell if she was convicted of federal crimes, and he can pardon anyone convicted of a federal crime. But what does a pardon get for Donald Trump? This is unclear because somebody who's been in prison, she could be for 20 years for sex trafficking charges, certainly has a reason to say something that may not be the whole truth and nothing but the truth to someone like Todd Blanche, who is the #2, a political appointee at the Department of Justice. And what any pardon is going to do, if it happens, it's not going to change the subject here. This has absolutely overtaken the entire Trump administration over the past month. They passed that big, beautiful bill, as it was called, into law earlier this month, and there really hasn't even been a victory lap because of it, because the administration officials and members of Congress don't want to have to face voters and questions about the Epstein files.
So you mentioned Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. He actually had that second meeting with Maxwell on Friday. Do we know anything about what came out of that, and do we know what the next steps might be?
So we know they spent 9 hours behind closed doors, and Maxwell's attorney told reporters outside of the courthouse when they met on Friday that she was asked about 100 different people. She answered every question she was asked and did not invoke any privileges like the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Now, we don't really know much else, and part of that is because all these proceedings are generally kept secret in nature. But Maxwell's attorneys did say it went well. Here's what they had to say.
Ghislaine answered every single question asked of her over the last day and a half. She answered those questions honestly, truthfully, to the best of her ability. We're appealing on a very important ground, which is the government at the time promised her that, promised Jeffrey Epstein that any potential co-conspirators would not be prosecuted. And so she deserves that promise.
And that last line goes to what the next steps are here. Maxwell has for years had a pending appeal at the Supreme Court over what she believes is a non-prosecution agreement that was broken. We expect further filings in that case today.
Gary, we mentioned this bipartisan effort to force a vote in Congress that would compel the Justice Department to release these Epstein files. Let's say that happened and the vote succeeds. Could the administration still refuse to release them?
They absolutely could, and I think it's important to remember what exactly this case was about, which is about the sexual abuse of dozens of girls at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein, and certainly many of these victims are still alive, and that is part of the problem here. The lawmakers do not want to cause any more harm to some of these victims, so that's part of what's at play here. The other thing that's at play here is the fact that so much of what happened here is before a grand jury, and there's big and important rules about what can be released into the public if it was heard by a grand jury. All of that is up to a judge.
Gary, can you just talk more about just the mood in Washington when it comes to this right now? Because we know Republicans tend to always fall in line behind President Trump, but then that's sort of at odds with what we're hearing from so much right-wing media, MAGA media right now, that wants to know more about this issue, that doesn't trust everything it's hearing. What does that mean for the lawmakers and all the power players in Washington right now?
Well, yes. So it's beginning to be August here in a few days. And that's generally when lawmakers go home to their districts, have town halls, have these events. But Republicans are really sort of at a crossroads here because Republicans want this information released because they think there's going to be such information about high-profile Democrats that could be released, Bill Clinton or otherwise, folks that have been named previously in the Epstein files on flight logs, et cetera. And Democrats want this information released because they think it's going to be really incriminating towards Donald Trump. It really is going to probably end up here where neither side is going to be very happy. The information that's out there is likely all we're going to get in terms of any salacious details or anything interesting that could come further in this, guys.
All right, Gary, thank you so much.
In Michigan, a suspect is in custody after a terrifying stabbing spree inside a Walmart happened over the weekend. In all, 11 people were injured. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa reports on dramatic new video showing Good Samaritans appearing to confront the suspect to help stop the rampage.
Throw the knife that way! Throw it away!
In Michigan, heart-stopping video that authorities say shows Good Samaritans, one apparently armed, confronting a lone attacker who just allegedly stabbed 11 people at a Traverse City Walmart Saturday. Moments later, a deputy seen cuffing the suspect, now ID'd as 42-year-old Bradford James Gilley, who the sheriff says used this folding knife with a 3.5-inch blade to stab people at random. Gilley now being held on 11 counts of assault with intent to murder and 1 count of terrorism, carrying a possible life sentence. His motive not yet determined.
My understanding is the only thing that he said just prior to being taken into custody was, "Are you 911?" or something to that effect. That's it.
That's it.
Very, very few words spoken.
Officials say they don't know why Gilley, who lives in a town nearly 2 hours away, was in Traverse City, and that his criminal history includes what they call prior incidents of assault. The local hospital says the victims range in age from 29 to 84, adding one's been released, 2 remain in serious condition, the rest in fair condition. The sheriff praising those who stepped in to help.
Heroes in your mind?
Absolutely.
Yeah. No
And
doubt.
that's why I say, I mean, in today's world, you can't get someone to stop and help somebody to change a spare tire, let alone you have someone that just brutally assaulted people. Unbelievable. My hat goes off to each and every one of them.
Our thanks to Maggie Vespa for that report. All 11 victims are expected to recover. A spokesman for Walmart said the violence at its store was, quote, unacceptable, and that their thoughts are with those who were injured.
Well, new video shows some scary moments on the runway of Denver International Airport over the weekend. Passengers were forced to use the emergency slides to evacuate from an American Airlines plane that was engulfed in smoke due to a small fire in the brake system just before it took off on Saturday. NBC News correspondent George Solis has more from those on board when it happened.
One of the passengers we spoke with on board the flight describing the moments before and after that emergency evacuation. Terror on the runway at Denver International Airport.
I just was briefed that there is a plane on fire.
Video shows fire and smoke billowing from under this American Airlines plane as 173 passengers and 6 crew on board were forced to evacuate using the aircraft's emergency slides on Saturday. Watch as one passenger falls. Another man with luggage in hand appearing to slip with a child.
You okay?
All as alarms blare on the runway. Another video capturing what appears to be a tire coming apart from the plane and rolling away. Flight 3023 was scheduled to depart from Denver, bound for Miami. The airline saying the combination of blown tires and the deceleration of the aircraft resulted in a minor isolated brake fire.
Somebody screamed, "Fire, burn!"
Passenger Mark Circus recorded this video of passengers running. When did it become real for you?
Well, when I heard the boom, I knew something was wrong. It was a loud noise from under a plane. I knew something serious just happened.
Circus says the aircraft was speeding up prior to takeoff and that the pilot reacted quickly.
As soon as I heard the boom, he started braking because we were speeding up at the moment.
American Airlines saying one passenger was taken to the hospital with minor injuries. The FAA says they're investigating. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says an FAA investigative team is already on the ground in Denver. The secretary also saying that he's spoken with the American Airlines CEO about the incident. Back to you.
All right, George, thank you.
Officials in New Orleans are calling on an inmate to turn himself in. He was mistakenly released from jail because of a clerical error. Officials say 30-year-old Khalil Bryan was let out after officials confused him with another inmate who has a similar last name. New Orleans police said late last week that Bryan has a violent criminal history and is serving time for charges including resisting an officer and possession of stolen property. He was mistakenly released from the Orleans Parish Justice Center. That is the same jail where 10 inmates escaped in May through a hole in the wall behind a cell toilet. 9 of those men were found and taken back into custody, with 1 still remaining at large. As for this recent error, officials are launching an investigation into Bryan's release while actively searching for him.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.